Over the past few days, our understanding of Hougoumont has come on leaps and bounds. It was only ever our intention to do an evaluation here, just to take a bite at things and see what the character of the archaeology was. But I think we've gone slightly further than that at this stage. And I think particularly with the metal detecting, we've been working down in this stubble field for the past 3 days. And that was an area that at the time of the battle was occupied by a wood. And that seems to have acted as a defensive feature, shielding the buildings from the French. But that doesn't mean to say they didn't penetrate it. The French did advance up through that wood, putting the Hanoverians in that section who were fighting with the British on the back foot, pushing them back up to the shelter of the walls. And that fight within the wood is not fully understood. There are some eyewitness accounts, but it's fairly vague. So what we hoped that the archaeology would show us would be some direct evidence for that fight within the woods. And despite the fact that we had a disappointing start with the metal detecting, because illegal detecting has been taking place here for years and there's been a huge swathe of material removed. I'm standing in what we're calling the killing zone, where we would have expected a lot of musket balls. I think we found about 2 on the first day. That was very disappointing. But as we moved away from the buildings, the scatters got slightly denser. And when we were down at the end of that open field, which would have been the southern end of the wood at the time of the battle, we came across a concentration of both British brown bess musket balls and French musket balls mixed together, indicative of a very close range firefight. And that ties in with our understanding of the first French attack coming down off the ridge. There's some skirmishing the night before, but around about 11:30 on the day of the battle, the French come down in some force and fight their way into the wood and up towards the buildings. And it's evidence for that fight that we've got. And that's really gratifying, because in effect what we've got there are some of the first shots fired in the Battle of Waterloo, which, when you consider that hundreds of thousands of rounds were fired through the day, to find the first that were shot is really quite exciting. And we've moved along the base of that ridge, along the southern lip of where the wood would have been. And again, that pattern continues, but it's mostly French shot, incoming fire. I think what we've got there is fire delivered by the French as they come down that slope in the advance. And they're firing into the wood, firing at these sharpshooters. They're probably a bit cheesed off, because some of these guys in the wood are armed with rifles that are very accurate over long distances. So they've probably been taking a pop at them from a fairly good range. But that scatter of balls stretches all the way along. So again, it looks as though we've got the initial stages of that fight. And the other thing that we've discovered is that there is patterning to the scatter. And on Siborne's map, but no other, we have a track leading directly from the south gate through the wood to its southern end. That doesn't appear anywhere else. But the geophysics suggested that there was a track. And then our scatter of musket balls actually defines part of the edge of that track. So it looks like men have been shooting from the edges, from the wood, into the road. And that makes sense, because obviously if you've got an open thoroughfare, the French are going to be favouriting that to get up very quickly to the buildings. So it looks as though that track has been the scene of another firefight. So again, that's certainly a lot more clarity about the nature of that struggle than we've had from the eyewitness accounts. Even though we've only done a limited amount of metal detecting, I think already it's validated itself. It's proven its worth. And I think as the work continues and we can expand out into other areas, I think we're in for some really nice surprises.